Hey there! Have you ever looked at a map or a set of statistics and just felt like you weren't getting the whole story? Well, today we're diving into a really cool concept that shows how one single piece of data can tell completely different stories depending on how you look at it. It all comes down to something called the scale of analysis. So let's start with a puzzle. How is it possible that you hear on the news that a country's economy is booming, but at the same time you know that communities within that country are really struggling? It feels like a contradiction, right? But it's not. The answer is all about the scale you're using to view the data. And this gets us right to the core of what it means to think like a geographer. It's all about thinking spatially, because as you'll see, the story changes completely depending on your vantage point, whether you're looking at the big picture from way up high or zooming all the way down to street level. All right, so let's really get into this. We're going to unpack exactly how geographers tackle these kinds of puzzles, just by changing their point of view and how that reveals these hidden narratives that are hiding inside a single map or a single set of data. The secret weapon here, the key to it all, is a tool called the scale of analysis. Now, the best way to think about it is like a geographer's zoom lens. It lets you shift your focus from the entire planet down to a single neighborhood. And with every click of that zoom, the story can change completely. So let's see how this zoom lens actually works. We're going to break it down into 4 main scales, starting from that huge planet-wide view and zooming our way all the way down to the local level. These are our 4 main settings: global, regional, national, and local. Each one gives us a totally unique perspective, and you guessed it, reveals different patterns that were invisible at the other levels. First up, the global scale. This is the widest view you can get, looking at the entire planet all at once. It's absolutely essential for understanding those huge planet-wide issues like international trade flows or, of course, climate change. Things that just don't make sense without seeing the whole picture. Okay, let's zoom in one click to the regional scale. Here, we're not looking at the whole world, but big chunks of it that have something in common. Think of something like the European Union, which is a political and economic region, or Sub-Saharan Africa, which shares certain geographic and cultural traits. Zooming in again, we get to the national scale. Now, this is a perspective we're all pretty familiar with, right? This is when we're looking at data that's contained neatly inside a single country's borders. Things like unemployment rates across Germany, or population shifts within the United States. And finally, we zoom all the way into the local scale. This is our most detailed, magnified view. We're talking about provinces, cities, counties, or even individual neighborhoods. This is where you can see stuff that's totally invisible from above, like daily traffic patterns or where parks are located in a city. So you might be thinking, okay, I get it. This is just about the size of the map, right? Like a world map versus a city map, and that's a super common thought, but there's a really important distinction we need to make. Now, this is the key. The scale of the map is just the area it's showing, the world, a continent, whatever. But the scale of analysis is about how the data is actually grouped or chunked together. So get this, you can be looking at a map of the entire world, but if each country is colored in based on its data, your scale of analysis is actually national, not global. So you always have to ask, how is the data being organized? Okay, enough theory. Let's put this zoom lens to work with a real-world example. We're going to look at life expectancy, and you're going to see how the story just completely transforms as we click through the different scales of analysis. So, starting at that huge global scale, the highest possible view, the story of human health over the last 70 years or so seems incredibly simple and, really positive. The data clearly shows that overall, life expectancy has gone up in almost every corner of the world. It's a story of amazing progress, largely thanks to modern medicine and global development. A simple, happy story, right? Case closed? Well, not so fast. Let's adjust our lens and zoom into the regional scale. The moment we do that, that simple, positive story, it starts to fall apart, and a much, much more complicated picture of deep inequality begins to appear. For instance, if we compare regions, we see these massive gaps. People in a region like North America, on average, live significantly longer lives than people in, say, Sub-Saharan Africa. This huge difference was completely hidden when we were just looking at the global average. Okay, let's zoom in again, this time to the national scale. Now, you might think that countries that are right next to each other would have pretty similar situations, but as we're about to see, sharing a border definitely doesn't mean sharing the same reality. Just look at this. China and Myanmar, they're neighbors. But look at the difference in average life expectancy. It's a 13-year gap. That is a massive difference in people's lives that was completely invisible at both the regional and the global scales.
And now for the final zoom, all the way down to the local scale. This is where the story can get truly mind-bending. In the United States, for example, there's a general assumption that people in a state like California are healthier than people in a state like Alabama. But if you zoom into the county level, that story can completely flip. There are individual counties in Alabama where people actually have a higher life expectancy than in some counties in California. It's wild.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? Why does this skill of changing scales matter so much? Well, because it fundamentally changes how we see the world, and more importantly, how we try to solve its problems. When we change our scale, we uncover these hidden patterns that are just totally masked by broad averages. This lets us expose those really interesting variations from place to place. And that's crucial because it helps people make better policies and plans. Ultimately, it helps us solve these spatial puzzles and get a much richer, more honest understanding of why things are the way they are. So, the next time you hear some big, sweeping statement about a country or a region, or even the world, just pause and ask yourself, what scale are they using? And more importantly, what story in your own community, your own city, your own world would change completely if you just adjusted the scale?